This is a thing we never expected to see, a roguelike having the best writing of the year. Supergiant Games really did something special, doling out the story in Hades and making each and every run still feel like progress even if you die in the early stages. They use the writing as a reward for just trying, making even failure feel like a success. Characters change and grow through your playthroughs, and even your enemies get fantastic bits of characterization and growth as the main cast of characters in Hades' house grow closer and closer, and the Olympians show their true nature while still being familial. It's one big family drama that unfolds run after run after run, and it somehow manages to do right by every one of its cast, encouraging more and more play, more experimentation, and more effort to unlock all the little things the game has to offer. Being able to walk to a part of a stage opening and have the camera zoom out as Zagreus admires the area with a little short commentary, or his arguing with the omnipresent narrator every time you walk up to a little sparkle of light, are reasons we keep coming back to this game.
In the name of Hades, Olympus, I'll accept this message.
Hey there, Zag man, how's it going? Look, you have got to get here with the rest of us already. We've been saving you a spot. Let me see what I can do. Make life a little sweeter for you in the meantime.
You want blood? Is that why you're here?
It doesn't matter how deep you are in the gaming sphere, there's no way you didn't hear about the absolute disaster that is Cyberpunk 2077. As a complete mess of glitches and bafflingly bad design decisions, Cyberpunk landed so poorly that it was taken off of PSN, an absolutely unprecedented move for a storefront that still hosts train wrecks like WWE 2K20 and Life of Black Tiger. Behind this travesty of a game was CD Projekt Red, the company that said they wouldn't crunch to complete it, crunched massively to try and complete the game anyway, and still delayed it so many times that die-hard fans of the game, people who took vacation time off work just to play it, still felt spited. That's not even mentioning CDPR's multiple brushes with blatant and egregious transphobia, so much so that it's built into the game's character creator that feels so absurdly antithetical to Cyberpunk as a genre. Or how about the extremely specific sequence of flashing lights in the game that induces seizures? And as a response, CDPR put a warning in the EULA, to make sure people were, quote, properly warned. Aside from just issues of Cyberpunk, CDPR's retro game storefront GOG announced that they would be hosting the game Devotion, a cult classic Taiwanese horror game that was delisted off Steam and other digital platforms for a joke that equated Chinese President Xi Jinping with Winnie the Pooh. Instead of taking the much needed W, CDPR instead immediately backpedaled and announced that they would not be adding Devotion to GOG, showing that they're truly just as spineless as they are horrible to their employees. The CDPR managed to destroy all of its credibility in just 1 year. The year that was supposed to be its year, 2020. They tainted themselves so much that they had to release an apology video where they said they would be delaying the first Cyberpunk DLC until many of the remaining issues were ironed out, which prompted a bunch of responses about how they somehow delayed Cyberpunk again, while also shitting on the hard-working QA testers who had the absolute Sisyphean task of testing a project as large as Cyberpunk 2077. This was shortly before it came out that they somehow had the misguided belief that they were going to make this game a hit anyways because, well, they made The Witcher 3. Considering that game was also widely criticized for its horrible crunch period, maybe CD Projekt Red should have taken a different approach.
Come back when you're a little, richer.
We as a society will not progress unless we are more willing to help people. A willingness to assist our fellow person with our labor, our money, or our time must be instilled into each and every one of us, lest we fall prey to a future that cannot support us. Ichiban Kasuga is the mascot to the better future. He played Dragon Quest as a kid, thought about how good it felt when he completed quests in the game, then applied that to real life. What do you know? It feels good to help others in the living world. Not only that, but if someone isn't troubled by something, they can help someone else, and so on. 2020's worldwide problems and the struggles of Ichiban's party are absolutely not one-to-one, but I couldn't help but think about current events while playing Yakuza Like a Dragon. Specifically, I thought about the rays of hope that occurred during such gloomy times, and how all of them came from collaboration between average people, collective effort instead of relying on those at the top. Ichiban's crew is the same, a bunch of chicken McNobodies that, while still involved with the plot due to connections to certain characters, could have easily sat out and let things ride their course. It's people like those who came together to speak out against oppression, bring aid to those who need it, and mutually aid one another that inspired me this year, and Ichiban's character echoed a lot of those sorts of heroism. If we are to truly live in 2020 and beyond, we must help each other, and if you need to tell yourself you're leveling up while doing it, then go for it.
Neo 2's Climax does so much in a limited time frame that if I were to type it all out, it would be impossible to fit in the limited space of time we have. I could spend pages, minutes, laying out all the drama, all the boss fights, all the epic moments from start to finish, but I'll try to keep it concise. It starts where the game began, the place where you met your best friend Tokichiro, corrupted now by his lust for spirit stones into becoming the warlord Hideyoshi Toyotomi. You fight, you win, and then you have to beat the demon that's been controlling him, and your best friend gets to die, finally free of his corruption. The game spends so much time building the relationship between you and Tokichiro that even though he betrayed and killed you, all you wanted to do was save his soul, and you do, sealing away the demon forever. Well, at least for 8 years, until you get awoken by William from Neo 1. With an incredible boss encounter, before you get to team up with him for the game's final stage. It feels amazing, tearing through armies of powerful yokai alongside the protagonist from the first game, and your erstwhile companion Mumio. Your character completely buzzsaws your way through what should be a hard stage, and the action grows more intense until the final arena, where you end up possessed once again, and fight one of the most thrilling final bosses I've ever experienced. Otakemaru has every yokai ability you do. He has the counters, he has the massive AoEs, and he constantly shifts forms throughout the fight. It's an amazing feeling, especially when Tokichiro's voice rings out and his guardian spirit starts jumping into the fray to help you. The jovial man you loved is back, and you can't help but feel energized by hearing his voice. It's an amazing ending that brings the series to a close for all of the characters from both games and leaves us truly satisfied with where things have gone. They've said there isn't another Neo game coming, and that this is the end of the franchise. And after just how much this ending rips, we're okay with that.
Deadly Premonition has always been a cult classic, and one of my favorite games of all time. Unfortunately, recommending it to other people has always been a bit of a nightmare, constantly appended by warnings about certain aspects of the game, as well as a heaping pile of performance issues. In the 10 years since its release, however, people had gained reason to hope. Director Hidetaka Suehiro, or Swery65, developed multiple games, most noticeably 2018's The Missing, which seemed almost like the sort of open-form apology for the narrative mistakes made in his biggest hit. Unfortunately, all that hope turned out to be misplaced, as its sequel, Deadly Premonition 2, A Blessing in Disguise, doubled down on all of its predecessor's worst aspects. Whether it's the rampant transphobia, weird racist tendencies, or just plain nonsensical and mediocre writing, there's plenty to be disappointed by in a follow-up that should have been an easy slam dunk. Maybe worst of all is the inexcusable performance of the game, which consistently runs at a single-digit frame rate that's nauseating to wrap your mind around. Since its release, Swery put out a very half-hearted apology where he said that it was fine for transphobic things to happen in the game because transphobia exists in real life, and even managed to get into several arguments with trans people about it. Everything about Deadly Premonition 2 is really just exactly what we said on the tin. Disappointing.
I don't know how to say that 2020 has been a unique and distressing year for everyone in a way that doesn't sound like a useless platitude. It was terrible and violent, and every single day felt like we, collectively, have been barreling headfirst into a future that is dark and terrifying and will only end in disaster. Umarangi Generation is a game that somehow manages to tap into this specific emotion, this existential dread, and lets you as a player feel like you aren't alone. While I'm not much of a photographer, the lens you see through implores you to examine every single inch of Umarangi Generation's meticulously crafted levels. It asks you to watch the final days of a dying world, the inadequacy of a failing government, and the normal, everyday lives of the people who live in each of its cordoned-off, designated zones. It wants you to see how people still live, knowing that the end is coming, and its beauty is that it doesn't fall into a trap of pure, depressing nihilism. People still hang out, they have friends, they make dance circles, they take pictures of each other. We're all still living and doing what we can to have a normal life in progressively less normal conditions. What I love about this game is how Neon Genesis Evangelion is a clear inspiration for the game, but it's a game that's also trying to work in conversation with its inspiration. Ava is about huge robots trying to save the world, only to hopelessly have every inch of victory snatched out from under them. Ava's quiet moments show sparsely populated city centers, huge cities completely empty because after the first two impacts, there's barely anybody left. You hear cicadas, and more importantly, you don't hear people. Anyone that's left is in designated quarantine zones or in their own independent cities outside of Nerve's circle of influence. Umarangi Generation is a game that asks you to put yourselves in the shoes of those people. You are not a protagonist. You're not Shinji. You're one of the bystanders that has to sit by and watch Shinji do his best in the face of an inevitable apocalypse. The mechs and the monsters that you see in Umarangi are so distant from your station in life that the most you can do is take a picture. In a lot of the environments of Umarangi Generation, you can find graffiti that tells the story of a people whose government has let it down time and time again. It's hard for that not to resonate in 2020, where, in America, a white supremacist leadership has only given its people a total of $1,800 to somehow survive a lockdown that has seen many people lose their livelihoods and homes. Umarangi, though, is not about the end of the world. It's about the people who live in it. It's about doing things for yourself that are fun and make you comfortable. It's about finding beauty in the spaces in between, where people still live their lives. Much like the hundreds of thousands of in-game pictures the official Umarangi Generation Twitter account retweets from its players, it's about creating something for yourself and enjoying it together with other people. Your friends, your family, found or familial, and every nice stranger you meet who's going through it with you side by side. And it's also about having a penguin as a sidekick, and that's just wonderful.